No.
August 8th, council caucus before our regular council meeting. Debbie, will you please call the roll?
DeGeronimo,
Here.
Brunzel,
Here.
Narduzzi,
Here.
Tagliati,
Here.
Tracus,
Present.
Roberka,
Here.
and Walton.
And we're going to go a little bit out of order so that some of our guests that are here could come first and speak to council and everything and be on their way, so they won't have to stay for the entire caucus. So we will start with its first reading, page 3 of our agenda, and it's ordinance number 2023-88. It's ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a job creation and relocation grant agreement with Weltman Weinberg and Reese Company LPA to relocate operations to a location within the city. And Jess, if you wanted to address council first on this matter? I took a ride before our meeting today, took a ride out there to see, that's the Farmers Insurance Building that they're going to occupy the entire building, I believe, but Jess will tell us more.
I'll just turn it on.
Good afternoon.
The microphone and me don't always get along. So thank you, everyone. Yes, the first piece of legislation on the agenda tonight is a grant for Weltman, Weinberg, and Reese. They are a law firm that specializes in the collections industry, and they're looking to lease 50,000 square feet of space over on West Creek. They plan on leasing that space for approximately 10 years and are committing to bringing $20 million in payroll. As you'll note, the offer letter that was in front of you also has some different payroll numbers. They project their payroll to actually be closer to $25 million and anticipate it to grow closer to $30 million in that 5-year period of time. In order to relocate them here to the City of Independence, we would be offering them a 25% grant for a period of 5 years, and then have a 5-year monitoring period associated with that grant. Just to provide some context for this, this would easily put Weltman in our top 10 employers, amongst our top 10 employers, which complements some other grants that we've offered here recently. MAI, who's been in the City of Independence for just a little under a year, is our number 4 employer currently. Garland Industries, who we also brought here in Independence in the last 3 years, is amongst our top 20 employers. So we see that these grant programs are bringing top-tier employers to the City of Independence. Again, 10-year lease, 5-year grant, 25% rebate back to the company. We estimate that to be in the neighborhood of about $120,000 a year. For the next 5 years. If anyone has any questions for me or a representative from Weltman, they are both here. Also, just to provide additional layer of context, when we go to these grant agreements, a lot of times the companies or the brokers will ask us to sign non-disclosure agreements, as well as not provide a lot of details about the whereabouts of the company. So I know this is sensitive. This is a company coming from Brooklyn Heights. We've had a conversation with the mayor of Brooklyn Heights. He understands that this is a business transaction, feels it's a good decision actually for his company, or for the company. He understands that this company, one of their decisions for locating here in Independence was they're in multiple buildings. This would put them in one building. The tax here in Independence is less than what it is in Brooklyn Heights. So this actually looks like a good move for the company. He understands that while they've been a great community member, he understands the decision, the business factor, too.
In practice of law for 43 years, I do a lot of probate estate work, so I'm very familiar, and it's a wonderful firm. I've had really good dealings. I have nothing but when I heard the news, I was really overjoyed that their operations were going to come to Independence, even though it's at the cost of our neighbor. But still, it's one of the top collection firms in the country. So I welcome you gentlemen, welcome your firm there. I hope, again, that you could be a resident of Independence for many, many decades to come. Do we have any questions from council of Jessica? And gentlemen, would you like to speak?
Just to introduce myself, I'm Ted Tron, the office managing attorney.
I'm the office managing attorney for our Cleveland office. Our managing partner is unfortunately out of town this week, or else he would be here as well. But we're very excited about the opportunity to move to Independence, and like Jessica said, it would offer us the opportunity to get all of our folks under one roof, which would be helpful for our, our culture and our cooperation and working with each other. As Councilman Grindell mentioned, we are one of the nation's largest creditors' rights law firm. We have a number of staff, not just attorneys, but paralegals, legal secretaries, recovery specialists, IT folks. So it's quite a range of folks that work for us. And we've spent last 25 years in Brooklyn Heights, and we're looking forward to, a long stay in Independence as well, if that should be the case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from council? And any opposition to putting this on the consent agenda this evening? Oh, welcome. You'll be on the consent agenda, so we'll be fast tracking it this evening. Thank you very much, and thanks for being here. Okay, Jessica, now we move on further down on page 3. The next ordinance is 2023-89. It's ordinance authorizing the vice mayor to enter into a job creation and relocation grant agreement with Millcraft Paper Company to relocate operations to a location within the city, I believe on Rio Nero.
Correct.
And that's going to complete the occupancy for that building.
Correct. So there's 116,000 square feet of space that is available. Millcraft is proposing to move into that space. The building will be delivered at the end of the month. So the first tenant, which is Faber-Castell, will be moving in, and this will complement and complete that building. Again, similar situation. This company is looking to sign a 10-year lease, and we're proposing a 5-year grant, 25%, so same terms and conditions as the previous company. Again, this payroll is $5 million, which would yield to the city about $100,000 in local taxes and a grant of about $25,000 per year. And I believe a representative from Millcraft is maybe on Zoom.
Do you have his name? Jess?
It would have been Alan Seba.
No, how about David Hageman?
That would be correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
Of course, Millcraft's been on Grand Avenue there in Cuyahoga Heights for
A number
As
of
long as I can
years,
remember.
yes. And again, this is the same situation. We're working through a broker for a company that's looking. They know they're moving. We have a no poaching policy. The brokers are approaching us. So this isn't somebody that we're trying to go out and nab a company from our neighboring community. So it's really sensitive. But we feel that this is a good company to keep in the region, especially since there isn't an opportunity for them to grow in their current location, that they can come to the City of Independence and have the space they need.
any kind of complementary to the other company that's in the same
Yeah,
building.
it's kind of a little ironic. We'll have pencils and crafts on one side and paper on the other. So it's an interesting combination.
Very good. And they will be moving sometime, early next year?
I believe so.
I see. Any questions for Jessica on this legislation? Jim?
Thank you, yeah, Jessica, so precisely what type of operation is this? Is this milling of paper? How does it work? What are they doing?
No, this is their headquarters and distribution center.
Okay, so will there be distribution going forward in that facility?
Yes.
Okay. Not a manufacturing?
Not
facility.
manufacturing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any other questions?
I'm curious why you're the one that will be signing this bill.
The company that owns the building and everything, there'd be a conflict for the mayor to sign that legislation. I believe that's what the reason is correct.
It just for a level of transparency and separation. The mayor had nothing to do with
Yeah.
the
Maybe not
grant or
conflict.
the company. And we just felt that it was better for optics that the mayor have nothing to do with the grant.
Yeah. Any other questions? And any opposition to putting this on the consent agenda this evening? Debbie, we'll add this to.
I'm going to abstain from voting on it.
Oh.
It could stay on the consent, I can abstain all of it, or leave it separate.
Yeah.
But why don't we just leave it separate so you don't have to abstain on everything else?
Yeah, so we'll vote on this separate. I forgot about that, John.
So we're voting on 89?
We'll be voting on 89 down there. Okay, Jessica, and then we have one more and
Yes.
thank you, fellas. And we moved into ordinance number 2023-94. It's an ordinance granting a special conditional use permit to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And if you wish to come forward, generally, they've been regulars. We've been seeing them, I think, since June, right, Greg, as far as from Planning Commission?
Yes, we've had 3
And,
planning commission meetings with them. And
I
I'll
know-
I'll just set it up, just saying this is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're proposing to build an approximately 9,000 square foot temple on Brecksville Road. And after several meetings with the Planning Commission, including a public hearing, the Planning Commission has recommended City Council approve the special conditional use.
I'm Jason Simmons. I'm the Senior Project Manager and Representative for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
We got it working today, so
Okay.
shout it out.
Okay. Just want to tell you all how excited we are to have selected the City of Independence for one of our most sacred and important structures that will allow us to be a part of your community and to better serve our members in this area, for them to be able to go to this location and worship. Again, we've chosen and selected this location very strategically, noting the City of Independence and the things that we see as far as the economy, the strength of the people, as well as the incredible community that you guys have built here. And we want to be able to be part of that and be able to enhance that as we continue to move forward and really become, a really big part of this community and hopefully enhance what you guys have going on here. The economy, the strength of the people.
Oh, excuse me,
The voice of the Lord.
yes.
Comments, I think he unmuted.
Very- And again, in the legislation, you would notice there's 3 conditions that we have, one being installing a landscaping plan that will be approved by our city planner. The other is that the spire shall not exceed 100 feet from its current established grade. And the third was to install a lighting that will be in compliance not only with the Ohio Revised Code, but also our city codified ordinances, as well as being approved ultimately, Don, by your department, the engineering department, to make sure that everything is acceptable, like to the neighbors and everything too. And
Correct.
I know it's going to be a beautiful structure. I think, Mayor, we talked about that. We're proud to have, all of our churches that we have in town, and we're proud to welcome your denomination also to Independence. Jim, I think you had to
Thanks,
add.
Jeff. It was more just for you from a planning commission perspective, because I reread and read the notes several times, and I really couldn't figure it out. So when we say that the lighting is going to be compliant to city code, the concern that the residents had was timing. Now, so if I'm right, is it like from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m.? Is that what we're saying?
The way that the stipulation was crafted, with respect to the lighting and the height will speak for itself. That's an easy one. The lighting, and I appreciate the question, because the lighting and the landscaping will evolve. Don's going to approve initially, but the church is going to work with the city continuously in terms of making sure if we have a problem with the lighting, that they'll adjust. And if we have additional landscaping that's needed once it's constructed, they're going to adjust, because there are several lots that are going to have a greater effect. And they're willing to put trees on the adjoining property if there's a need. So this won't all be established initially, but it's going to evolve over time, and the city will have a constant and continued influence over the lighting and the landscaping.
Thank you, Mayor. With respect to that, does that mean like a 9 o'clock stop time, or?
It'll be whatever Don and the city determines over time. If it's 9 o'clock, it'll be 9 o'clock. If it's 8 o'clock, it'll be 8 o'clock. If it's 10 o'clock, it's going to be flexible, and they've agreed to let the city monitor and influence this continuously.
And it'll be seasonal too, because of the.
Right.
Well,
It'll be
you say it's
shadowed.
seasonal.
Yeah.
And I think as some of the residents pointed out, the trees don't have leaves for half
Right.
the year, and that doesn't do any blocking. So I think we also have to consider that when we're talking about screening in the property.
And that's, Councilman Tracus, that's why with the uniqueness of this understanding between the community and our new customer is something that's going to evolve over time because of those circumstances. We don't know when the foliage changes, we don't know the time changes, and they've been very receptive to that flexibility with respect to those two issues. So let's see how it goes, but I'm confident that we'll be able to work with you, your organization, the city, and the residents to make sure that it's something that's unique, something that's good for everybody, and something that's attentive to the residents' concerns.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Yep.
So who decides who the need is? If we decide that we.
Well, you're going to, the residents, let me be clear, residents are going to deal through the city, and the city will then deal with the church. So as this evolves, and we have people that'll come on your property specifically, because it's directly affected, that's when we have the initial, my vision is when we have the initial landscape plan, and a year later, if we see where a couple more trees are needed, or some different arrangement of landscaping needs to be incorporated into it, that they'll do that at that time. If there's a timing of lights that's unacceptable or it's causing challenges, then we will work with them and they'll adjust their time period. So it's a unique situation. A code's a code, but the actual agreement gives the relationship some flexibility, and they will adhere to the city's requests. Okay? Did that answer council's questions relative to that? So,
When the temple has their grand opening in the first few weeks, what is the lighting time frame for that? What time will they be on? What time will they be off? Has that been determined?
no, I think they're going to work with the city. Here's the way I think it's going to work. If we have concerns after they start, we're going to call them and they're going to adjust it accordingly. If it's on too long, they're going to turn it down. They're going to turn the timing down. If it's too bright, they're going to adjust the light itself. And that's the way we envision this, and the landscaping the same way. We don't know when they do their landscape plan. It looks good on paper, but once you install it, there may be a void that, or maybe something that they may have to do something on some of the neighboring properties to make this a long-term protection for their own privacy as well as the neighbors. So it's going to be something I think is going to adjust and be fluid, is really the word I'm looking for, fluid,
Right.
as we progress the next couple of years.
Correct. And to speak to that specifically, the open house it isn't something that has flashing lights or anything to announce it. It'll be the lighting that would be there for the duration. And so there's not any special spectacle or additional lighting for that announcement. So it'll still be a really reverent and kind of sacred kind of procedure as we're entering into that as well.
Right. I think you anticipate that's about the only time that the parking might be an issue, because there'll be
Correct.
more people
Correct.
coming to see the temple at that time. But once it gets back to a normal operation or anything, the parking should be more than ample for
Correct.
the people coming in.
And we'll make accommodations to make sure that it isn't affecting the neighborhood in a negative way.
Yes, John?
I was just curious on the timetable for site work and construction.
Depending on when we can get permits into place, we should be, Aaron, you could probably speak to that a little bit better than I. But.
Yeah. Aaron Arbuckle, I'm with Haskell Company. We're the architect and contractor on the project. And as far as schedule goes, yeah, we'd love to get the permits in place by this fall, early fall, to get going on site work and things like that. Construction overall probably is in the range of, 8 months to a year from that time frame. So
And there'll be one house coming down, correct?
there would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the garage is associated with it. And, yeah.
Ideal. Yeah.
Having attended both public hearings, obviously, we heard a great deal of concerns by the residents adjacent to the property. So it is really critical that we do our due diligence related to making sure that we protect those residents, particularly related to light. And it sounds like we're going to be working at that target, so I'm pleased to hear that we're going to be working at that, because the lighting potentially could always be an issue.
Right. Well, we've been very fortunate, you've been very cooperative in providing, anything the city would need for, the planning commission would need also to make our decisions. So we don't anticipate any problems at this point, but a good working relationship between the church and the city in behalf of the residents that live in the area. Any other questions from council? Any opposition to putting this on the consent agenda this evening? Debbie will put this on the consent agenda this evening, so it'll fast track it tonight, get approval.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe now we can go back to the start of the agenda.
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
we're having some Zoom issues, so anybody on Zoom who would like to go over to YouTube to continue to watch, there's no issues on YouTube.
So.
So there are issues with the Zoom this evening, so if you are in Zoom, if you go over to YouTube, you should be able to have a better interface with the meeting.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Debbie. We'll go back now to page 2 of the agenda, and this is two pieces of legislation that's on second reading. Ordinance number 2023-72. It's an ordinance amending ordinance 2021-56, which established the Home Improvement Assessment Public-Private Partnership Program for the purpose of assisting city residents to maintain and assure properties remain in compliance with the codified ordinances, including but not limited to for stormwater management, creek maintenance, and sewer maintenance. Councilman Jim Tracus, your sponsor of this legislation, if you want to give us an update from the utilities meeting that was held yesterday.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Utilities Committee considered both 2023-72 and 2023-73 as companion measures in committee, both in the month of July and here in August. After some rather substantial debate and discussion on the issue, I think these both were referred back to council with an affirmative vote. One was amended, 2023-73 was amended to state that the appropriation amount is $200,000. There was some question about what the specific amount was supposed to be. So the number of 200,000 is there. With respect to 2023-72 and the functionality of the program, which took up most of the discussion at the time, I think the committee had wanted to probe a little bit about what were the priorities related to these pieces of, to this type of a program. So, the legislation is written semi-broadly, but these are all going to be related to stormwater management, creek maintenance, sewer maintenance, which would be on private property. And the legislation does spell out the details as to how these projects would be evaluated. The question came down to prioritization, with the committee having a preference to have priority projects, including things like sewer tie-ins that had been identified in the past that were not tied in properly. And Mayor Kurtz indicated that that was something that would be a priority for him as well. There was some back and forth about the overall management of the program. The mayor pledged to bring this to council as frequently as the Utilities Committee met, and to have a report on a regular basis to report what types of projects were looked at. The committee ultimately felt that the ordinances were ready for tonight's discussion, and we did refer them back to council today. I didn't give you all the details, but that was kind of a summation of what the committee work had been done. So obviously we have these on. We have a program in existence, just as a reminder, that is currently in existence. The 2023-72 changes that, changes the scope, and provides a little bit more guardrails actually on the program and how it's supposed to function, that we did in conjunction with the engineering department. I want to thank Jim Riley in particular, who helped us put together some good ideas along with Don Ram about the functionality of the program. as well as Emily from Community Services, who had some requests on it. So as we roll this out to the public, we wanted to make sure that the program was consistent. The administration found faults with the original program as it was conceived, and we did make changes to the program to try to make it something that works both for the city and for ultimately the residents. The goal of the program is to allow people who have rather expensive work to be able to be done in a timely manner on their properties, to help neighbors to put together neighborhood projects that would be on private property. That would obviously be a big part of what we're trying to accomplish as well. And we're just kind of rolling this out, so we don't know all the different uses of the program. And I believe it's in good shape, and we recommended it for passage tonight.
And Jim, I believe as part of the legislation, there's showing that what projects have been completed. It looks like there's been 6 projects completed. The cost of the city was $17,027, I believe. And then it's on that table to show what the owners, the residents contributed towards that, so.
Correct.
And that's the kind of report, or similar to that, that'll be given to council on a periodic basis as this moves forward, I believe.
Correct.
Now, I know the 2 other members of the committee, Anthony or Adele, would you like to comment?
Well, I shared a lot of concerns at the meeting yesterday, and I will not be supporting this legislation. Initially, when this legislation was drafted and brought forth to council and the Utilities Committee, the impetus of it was to spearhead neighborhood projects, projects that spanned multiple parcels, and the city would facilitate working together with the neighbors to bring them into agreement to solve problems that spanned boundary lines. Looking at the projects that have been completed, there's 7 of them. 6 of the projects were completed on individual parcels. There's 1 project that spans property lines. So that has been removed from this amendment of the legislation. It is very vague in general, the way this legislation is written. The original intent of it was also to assist residents who may have a financial hardship, and that was also removed from the amendment. And I've read through the minutes of the July 10th, 2023 Utilities Committee meeting, and Engineer Ram stated, relative to the 7 projects that had been completed, he states that they were probably going to move whether we were helping them or not. And then he goes, they're just asking us to cut them a reimbursement check. So these were projects that the residents were going to do on their own anyhow, but now we're subsidizing them for whatever reason. We are also financing projects on personal property through the assessment process. These are 2 very unique aspects of local government that we have not done in the past. We are budgeting $200,000 for this program. Council has never met with the Finance Committee to discuss the impact on the budget, the allocation of these funds, how we came up with $200,000. There is no prioritization of projects. There's no true criteria of projects. The legislation does state that we're trying to maintain compliance on residential properties. But I am not aware that these 7 projects that have been completed were correcting any violations. And the amendment that I proposed or suggested at the Utilities Committee meeting was to prioritize known violations and known parcels that are not in compliance. In 2012, the city did a very extensive smoke and dye test throughout many neighborhoods. Dozens, if not hundreds, of parcels were identified to be in violation of cross connections. And I'm sure our engineering department still maintains that information. We could go back through, look at permits that have been issued to those individual parcels to see if they've corrected these violations. If the permits haven't been issued, then we would assume that these violations still exist. And if that's the case, those should be the highest priority if we're going to do anything on public property, because those are known violators, known issues, potential EPA violations. The legislation also allows the city to go 5 feet from a resident's home and do major excavation work, and the city will pay for it. It's a very unique project. It's very vaguely written. It gives the administration pretty much a $200,000 blank check to do work on private property and what they determine to do. And I can't support the program because of that.
Dale, do you have any comments?
I just wonder, Vern, where exactly are we gonna, where's the $200,000? What kind of line item are we gonna have for that?
In the email that I sent out yesterday with the budget amendment, I mentioned we were increasing the 430 fund, which is the drain water fund, by 200,000. And we're able to do that plus the amendments to the 410 account, the capital improvement fund, through increased revenue. Just by Governmental Finance 101, we could appropriate funds that we have that are unencumbered, as well as reasonably anticipated revenue. And based on the increased interest income that the city has had this year, we can increase the revenue estimate to allow us to appropriate the additional 200,000 in the 430 drain water fund, and we increase the 410 capital improvement fund for both the cemetery expansion project, if that passes this evening, as well as some possible quickening the timetable of the acquisition of some rubbish trucks in the service department.
Thank you.
Mayor, would you like to comment on this?
No, I just think it's a program that was initiated by council, and the administration has embraced it. It resolves neighborhood issues, and it'll continue to work on that vein and give us some flexibility. The administration continually works every day to solve residents' problems that they come to the city with. Council meets once a month, maybe twice. There are usually questions at those meetings, so a protracted timetable of 2 or 3 months to get a simple approval for a simple project is way beyond the scope of what good government stands for and serving the public. So we'll continue to use discretion, and when council members call and they ask us to review specific situations that are brought to their attention, we will continue to send the engineering group out, do the assessment, and determine the best strategy to solve that neighbor's problem.
Thank you, Mayor. Rest of the council, any questions or comments?
I mean, just, if you look at Independence, this is what makes Independence, these kind of initiatives, or whatever you want to call them, but we subsidize everything in this town. So this helps people that would never take care of these problems on their own. And if we have to get involved, and if we have to throw a little money in to make something right, to make Independence better, to make a neighborhood better, I'm all for it. And I mean, that's what this is all about. We're not trying to give somebody something for nothing that we never did before. Every mayor and every city goes on private property to help residents out if there's a tough situation. And a lot of these, we've been doing it for years and years and years. Now all we're doing is, actually, I feel we're getting reimbursed for some of these issues, and we're putting more of the debt, or what you want to call it, on the homeowner. So I think it's a great thing. I think we're gonna be able to help a lot more people out that would never even think about taking care of a situation that they can't do on their own.
Thank you, Tom. We'll be voting on this evening. This is on second reading, so we'll be voting separately on each of these ordinances.
Vice Mayor, just comments, I mean, to second on Tom, I agree with you. I think this is going to help a lot of people in a lot of neighborhoods, and Jim, give you credit for getting this together and off the ground. Specific to the program, and I brought it up yesterday, 7A of eligible properties, it actually excludes properties that are non-owner occupied. I would be in favor of eliminating that exclusion. Again, I think we've got a lot of rental property, a lot of residents that are in non-owner occupied homes. It's still an issue. I think if there's a worthy project in a worthy neighborhood, I would not want to exclude those properties. If we want to make I'd make a motion to revise that language, or if that's later on.
No, if you feel, if that's what you want to make an amendment to the legislation, now's the time to do it.
Then I'll make a motion to revise 7A to read, eligible projects shall be exterior of dwellings for existing addressed property located in residential zoning within the city limits.
Do you want to include owners, just to make sure that the renters don't actually ask for this without the owner's permission?
The owner has to be involved.
Yeah.
With willing owners' homes located in residential zoning.
That'd be great. I would second that motion.
Second from Jim. Debbie, will you call the roll, please?
Sure. DeGeronimo,
Yes.
Grindel,
Yes.
Narduzzi,
Yes.
Cagliati,
No.
Tracus,
Aye.
Ververka,
No?
Walchanowitz.
Motion passes.
Okay.
I'd just like to comment on Councilman Narduzzi's comments about how we've been doing work on private property forever. In reality, the majority of the work that was done on private property is diagnostic work, cameraing, maybe cleaning some laterals, not heavy excavation.
Where have you been for the last 30 years? Well, I'm serious.
I mean, we're doing heavy excavation 5 foot from a resident's exterior walls and replacing laterals and
Just
downspouts?
because
No,
it's in-
we're not. We
just
have
because
not
it's in
done
the
that,
legislation
Tom.
Don't mean that we've done it.
But it allows us to do that. So our job is to craft legislation. So if you don't think that's going to happen, it's gonna because it's written into the legislation, Tom.
Well, time will tell. Time will tell, and council sees the report, council will know what's going on, so I defer to the future. Defer to the future. So we have so the amendment's been approved, and continue, Vice Mayor.
Yes.
This was on
Amendment 72 or 73?
Amendments on 72.
72 as amended. We'll vote on that as amended then.
Yes.
It's on 72.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we'll be voting on this evening. We'll move now to page 3 of the agenda. We've already discussed ordinance 88 and ordinance 89. We move now to ordinance number 2023-90. It's ordinance accepting the bids for snow plowing services for senior citizens, disabled persons, active military residents for the 2023-2024 snow season. Dennis, if you want to.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, the legislation before Council today is to award 15 of the 21 routes within the city. The invitation to bid went out to 20 contractors. We received 4 bids. At the council workshop that we had a week or so ago, it was at council's recommendation that we accept the bids that we did receive and rebid the remaining routes. That would be approximately 200 driveways and 6 routes that we don't have coverage for.
And that when the notice for the, it went out to this.
The notice goes in on this Sunday, the 13th, the 20th, and then the bid will close on August 28th, the bid opens, rather. And we intend to have, hopefully we'll have some other contractors interested in the project and request a council, have it before council in the September meeting.
Any questions for Dennis?
One question I do have, council, we did talk about at committee that if there's an interest in making sure that the price would go to $50 a year from the current $25 a year.
I don't think we had any objection to that, Mayor.
So that we think we have to agree to that.
Is that in this legislation?
It's not in the legislation.
Separate piece of
we have to-
legislation.
We would have to add it.
We'd have to add that to the legislation.
This is just accepting the bids.
Yeah.
Yes.
We would need to propose that for next month's council meeting.
Okay, so think about it, because that's something that we talked about, and I thought that we talked about the possibility of being reasonable and realistic. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll prepare that for next month.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dennis.
So is that a consent agenda? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
is any opposition putting this on the consent agenda this evening? No? Seeing none, Debbie, will I add this to the consent agenda? To page 4 of the agenda, and that's ordinance number 2023-91, the 2023 annual appropriations ordinance. And Bernie, if you wish to comment, I know you sent us the memo and everything, it's self-explanatory, but if you wish to comment on this.
Sure, just, you're correct, Vice Mayor, the memo that I sent last night, very self-explanatory. Kind of minimal changes this month, just some general fund, interfund transfers, no change in the total appropriation. I just talked about the amendments in the 410, the Fort Capital Improvement Fund, the 430 Fund, the Drain Water Fund, and going with that revenue estimate, we were able to increase the revenue estimate both in the Law Enforcement Fund, 280, the Federal Forfeiture Fund, 285, due to the number of cases settled in the Law Enforcement Fund and the equitable sharing received from the strike force and the Federal Forfeiture Fund. So it's all finance, governmental, accounting geek stuff, but it allows us to keep doing what we do here.
Any questions for the Finance Director? Any opposition? Oh, yes,
Go ahead,
ma'am.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, yes, any opposition putting this on the consent agenda this evening?
Yes, please leave it off.
We'll vote.
Yes.
Okay. Mayor, you had
Yeah, I just want to, again, remind anybody, any public that is on Zoom, if they're having trouble with the Zoom and there's technical issues, the audio seems to be dropping out, everyone can watch the live council meeting by going to the city YouTube channel. Search City of Independence, Ohio, and click on the live tab at the top. And Debbie has posted it. Okay? Okay, great.
very good.
Thank you, Vice
Thank
Mayor.
you. We move right along. Ordinance number 2023-92. This is preliminary legislation. I believe it's for, is with the state, Don, they're going to do some repaving on Route 17, Granger Road.
Correct, Vice Mayor. It's a typical urban resurfacing program, and it's typically an 80-20 split between the state and the local entity. And because we did have a nice maintenance program and do a lot of crack sealing, they gave us a little bit of a credit, so we're only obligated for, it's an 85-15 split. And they have a preliminary estimate of $560,000 would be the city's work. At $84,000 ends up being the exposure to the city for our 15%. They are bidding the
How much is
project later this year, and we'll be able to program in 2024 work is when the work will
2024,
be
right.
scheduled to be performed.
And how much is the city share again?
84,000, and that's
84,000.
preliminary. It'll be adjusted with final legislation, the secondary component of this ODOT's process is they bid it, and then the secondary final legislation is from secured bids.
Is it basically a mill and fill type of thing that?
Correct.
Are they
Resurfacing.
doing anything with the curbing or that, or any other, or just strictly the pavement of the road?
I don't think there's any curbs on,
They're not curbed.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't go,
yeah, there's no
Mostly
curbs there.
uncurbed. I do believe joint repairs, if there's any need for full depth joint repairs, that would probably be included in the bid, or at least the same pro rata share
and
of the city's cost.
how much is in Independence? Not,
Just a section from the river bridge to Valley Belt.
I see. And they are gonna do, I think, the ramps, the Cloverleaf ramps.
And the
are gonna be
Cloverleaf ramps,
redone,
right.
But that's not, is that Valley View there, or is that?
Well, two of them, one's in Independence, I think two are Valley View, one might be Cuyahoga Heights.
Yeah.
It's all comes together
They're
right
right
there.
there, yeah.
Hey, Don, what happens if these other cities don't go for it? I mean, there's Garfield Heights in here, Brooklyn Heights, Valley View.
Yeah, I don't know that the project would get completely eliminated, or they would just do the work of the, communities that would be willing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm sure they have a pretty good feel for, it's a good deal for most communities. It'd be you'd be hard pressed to not afford a small percentage of the job.
Right.
It seems like they just go from Tuxedo, east of Tuxedo, which would be Brooklyn Heights, then through Independence and then Valley View. I don't think they go to Garfield Heights. I think it stops at the Garfield
To the
Heights.
border,
The
correct.
border,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Any other questions for Don?
No, just curious, I mean, Don or Mayor, the Cloverleaf, such a unique design. I don't think they build them anymore, I mean, different, but it's such a cool, the brickwork and everything, but it's overgrown. Yeah, I don't know if that could be on us of cleaning up, it'd be one of those landmark kind of areas if you could light it or in addition.
Let's, I'll have Don, why don't you and the Service Director will review the logistics and the legal component of it, and if there's something that can be done, because it is a unique situation, more or less. We'll look about, at the minimum, we should clean it up. And I have no objection, I think that the Valley View and everybody participates. And then the lighting might be something, something when we do the north of Y-480.
But then also, I've seen ODOT taking out Clover, like old design, maybe more like highway expansions. I don't know if they'd ever look at something and say, maybe this is that you could maybe do a four-way and
Well, I know,
free up a lot of
old
land.
maps where Lombardo Brothers Construction did that section of the Willow Freeway at the time it was called. So, yeah, it's something we could look at down the road, but I think we'll try to assess everyone's participation and involvement, but north of I-480 is when we should really incorporate that into a project from aesthetics as well as function.
We should probably do we still have money set aside for that lighting on Rockside Road? It's in Valley View. Remember, we kind of questioned, I know Doc Asaph was always wondering why we were putting money aside, to help Valley View. But we should take that money and put it towards this joint project, since it doesn't seem
So
to
by the
be.
time that bridge gets built, that 75,000, I believe, is what we spent. I was just talking to Don about that, it'll probably be 250,000.
Oh, yeah, and that was, we're talking many years ago that was
Yep.
set aside, but that could be seed money maybe for this project.
Vern, is there still 35,000 from Haydite to redo the Stone Road Bridge? Somewhere in the archives, Maggie?
You have to look.
They put 35,000 back in the 60s, I believe, to redo the Stone Road Bridge.
I think Don's always interested in any money being available.
Just last year.
Help him out.
Sorry about that.
Very good. Any opposition to putting this on the consent agenda this evening for the Granger Road? Very good, Debbie, we'll do so. We move to ordinance number 2023-93. It's ordinance authorizing change order number 2 to the city's 2022 asphalt road maintenance and repairs contract with Roniak Paving. I guess basically, Don, this really doesn't increase as far as any money goes, just extends the time out to December 21st.
31st, correct, Vice Mayor. It's really just a time extension. We did approve some prior change orders to authorize some funding, and knowing that no work's been performed to date, their contract expires next week, and it was really just an attempt to gain the rest of the paving season to allow them to perform work once they're directed to go.
So there's still has to be decision made as far as how that, what projects that money will be spent on?
Correct. I'm going to meet with Roniak tomorrow to look at a couple potential work locations.
All right, so you're going to get pricing from them possibly?
Correct.
Very good. Any opposition to putting this on the consent agenda? This was part of the Streets and Sidewalks meeting from last Tuesday. Ordinance number 2023-93 is put on the consent agenda. We'll on to ordinance number 2023-95. Is ordinance amending chapter 1366 lease rental occupancy certificate of the codified ordinances of the City of Independence, co-sponsored by Councilman Walchanowicz and Councilman Tracus. Gentlemen, any comments on this?
Sure, thank you. Obviously, it would be on first reading, and I believe the law director says that it would be subject to a public hearing because it's a use permit. Essentially, what this legislation would do, it's fairly simple. It changes, it adds and enhances to Chapter 1366 of our code to have a definition of temporary rentals as a 30-day period. So we would not have rentals of less than 30 days. And the purpose for this legislation, I think we see what's going on all across Northeast Ohio, is that you have situations where, and Richmond Heights just is dealing with this same issue. There's been a number of communities who are also dealing with the issue where you had a good intent of individuals who thought perhaps they would, lease their homes for vacation purposes. I know when the Republican National Committee came in, there was a thought that, people would go into homes for a week, on a temporary basis during convention season and that type of thing, and that did indeed happen. However, what we've seen is not these types of rentals used for short-term rentals used for business purposes, but they're being used for pleasure. So we have an entertainment district. We have a commercial district here in town, which has our hotels and motels, which are rentable for evenings and short-term stays. The concept of this legislation would be to keep residential zoning to be residential and to not have commercial enterprises operating in and out of their neighborhoods. The reality is that these become essentially party houses. We've had news reports, and I could send them to you, dozens upon dozens of news reports of drug activity, of parties, of excessive alcohol and other activities going on at what are supposed to be residential residences, in zoned residential. So being proactive, this has not become a problem in Independence, but let's make sure it doesn't become a problem in Independence. The concept is to have an enforceable ordinance that would be legally sound, and that's what this ordinance intends to do. And obviously, it's in construction, so if there's other ideas that anyone has, we're certainly, I think Chris and I are willing to entertain anything that continues the intent of what the legislation does. But, we want to increase the quality of life for our residents. And, if you've got homes being rented out on various streets in various neighborhoods, it may start out at one, then it gets to two or three, and then it's more, for a temporary basis, then now you're talking about a commercial structure that's operating in a residential neighborhood. We do have laws on the books about how many times a day people can come and go, and if they can park on the street, that type of thing. So I think this is within certainly the grasp of what our current ordinances do for residential neighborhoods. Just try to strengthening that, because you need to update things as innovations kind of spin out of control at times. So we just want to keep our residences, and we want to make sure that people who live in Independence continue to have high pleasure, and being able to have a house and a neighborhood that is based on residential and based on the ability for, to have high housing values continue to be maintained. That's the intent of the legislation.
Mark, is this an ordinance that we can add in Airbnbs as well?
You'd have to ask Walter, I don't know how that, that would kind of fall under the rule, but whether you can specifically say that, I don't know, for sure.
Because I know I have a resident on my street that's using bedrooms as Airbnbs, so.
I received, certainly from now until the public hearing, if we want to add or subtract from the proposed amendment, obviously we wouldn't write into the legislation Airbnb because that's a platform. But if there's a particular activity that you want to review and discuss and maybe limit or prohibit, we certainly can put that into the legislation.
And by the way, this concept of this legislation has been proved out in other communities and has been effective. So we didn't, this would not be a unique attempt. I really applaud the law director. We looked all across the country and found a number of various regulatory opportunities, and this one seemed to be the least intrusive and most effective.
So we'll keep this on first reading, and then will there be a public hearing next month, or are you anticipating maybe October?
5 o'clock?
If it's your will, yeah, certainly.
Okay.
5 o'clock next month?
That'd be great, Mayor. Thank you.
We move on now to page 5 of the agenda. It's ordinance number 2023-96. It's an ordinance accepting the bid of Fabrizi Trucking and Paving Company, Inc. for the Maple Shade Cemetery Expansion Phase 2 Improvements Project construction contract. Again, Don, would you like to comment?
Certainly, Vice Mayor. Yeah, internally, we put these plans and specs together, we bid this thing out, project out middle of last month of July. Bids were opened last Thursday, August 3rd. The engineer's estimate was $700,000, and we had a lot of good bids that were submitted. We had 9 plan holders, 7 bids were received from many well-known reputable contractors. 5 of the 7 bids were below the engineer's estimate for the base bid plus alternate A. We bid it out 2 ways. Alternate A was for asphalt roads, and alternate B was for concrete roads. And we had seemingly seemed to have a good amount of money in the 5-year capital plan that was under the Maple Shade Cemetery category of $650,000. So we did recommend that because the money seemed to be available, we feel like concrete is a nice option for an additional $59,000 between the 2 bids of Fabrizi. We felt it was the more appropriate material to use for the expansion.
Vern, I understand, financially, we have the money set aside to pay for this project.
This was the $600,000 I mentioned in the memo that we increased the appropriations amendment for if this would pass.
Under the 5-year capital plan, we had 650 set aside, 650,000, I believe, at least that's what the.
Well, technically, in the 5-year capital plan, we didn't have anything. There's nothing there that states cemetery expansion. There was money for fencing, there was money for mausoleum, columbarium.
That's where the money was.
Right, but we're finishing up the columbarium project, and we're well under the money appropriated, but there's also the slash mausoleum, and if we're going to do that, I don't want to get in the habit of, oh, hey, we had money set aside for this future project, but we have an immediate need now, and we take that money and use it, but then when we go to do that other part of the project, say the mausoleum a year or 2 or 3 down the road, and then everybody looks to me and says, hey, we put that money away, I say, oh, remember, you guys reallocated that for something else, so I'd rather leave that money for the mausoleum there and just amend the appropriation amendment to try to pay for the, this Fabrizi contract separate.
Very good. I wanted to clarify that because this was part of the legislation. Just wanted to make sure there's no confusion regarding that. But again, you did specify as part of the amendment to the appropriations that covered this cost. And then we still have the issue, I believe it was brought up about the fencing too, when all is said and done as far as the fencing for the cemetery.
We're not dismissing the fencing, but this having available cemetery plots is a priority, and to loop that, so we can, as far as I'm concerned, we can continue that discussion for next year's capital projects.
And the $150,000 in the 5-year capital plan that's allocated for the fencing will remain allocated for the fencing?
That's correct.
And then will there be any stonework at the entranceway or the gas lights? Will we
We'll make that, that bid does not incorporate that structure, but that will be part of the fencing project or a standalone project. But yes, it'll be treated because it will be accessing Brecksville Road south of the Cavs driveway. And we will extend, the goal is to extend that mounding, soften the mounding as we make that turn going further south from the Cavs mound. But that would be a separate project.
I'll put that on public lands and buildings.
Good idea.
One of our topics, so then we know, moving into next year, what ideas we want to use for it.
So with the grading work that's going to be done, that extending that mound is not part of this project?
The extending the mound, I think if there's excess dirt, we're going to extend the mound as part of it.
Yes, we had to mound dirt. We had initially located it in the northeast corner, but we could certainly push it up to where we desire it, closer to Brecksville Road.
So if you would, consistent with the questions, if you could put that together and show after we accept the bids, have the mound, show the landscaping, show the entrance similar to what we did with the other phases. And then we can have, put us in a better position to talk about the fencing also then. So that'd be a 2024, 2023 discussion, potentially a 2024 project.
And the fencing cost will increase because our frontage is greatly increasing as well.
Correct, that's correct.
And then that's true that this phase 2 will increase the number of grave sites to 1,481.
Yeah, we won't be in, down to 22 anymore.
Yeah. And I think maybe by the September meeting or October, we'll talk about pricing for.
Right, we need to follow up, council approved the columbarium wall pricing at a workshop session. We're going to continue that discussion to address the cemetery plots going forward. So that should be at a Public Buildings and Lands Committee meeting also. So we'd be prepared to discuss that and see if we can come up with a direction on that issue consistent with what we're doing with respect to the columbarium walls. And then we have something on the agenda after the Public Buildings and Lands Committee meeting.
Again, the last week, I've had 2 or 3 families that were in my office asking about, when they'll be able to buy. So people are antsy about blocking a.
I'd like to get a Public Buildings and Lands Committee. We'll take the basic information that we supplied to council. If you would, if each council member would then mark that up with their thoughts and submit that, then we can synthesize it and see if there's a close to a consensus in terms of the cost of this, using a framework that the administration supplied. If you could do that, then we'd be in a better position to expedite a discussion and a decision so that we can pass that legislation too. So as soon as we get that information from everybody, the quicker we can call a meeting. Okay? And if you don't submit, I'll assume that what we submitted is acceptable. Okay? Good.
Any other comments? And put this on the consent agenda this evening? Okay. We move on to ordinance number 2023-97. It's the ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the State of Ohio Office of Budget and Management to apply for and accept coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery grant funds through the Ohio Ambulance Transportation Program. And Stephen, you sent us, I think we saw a couple different memos on this. You'd like to comment?
Yeah, so I was made aware of this opportunity on Friday, so I apologize for the last minute. This particular application is due by August 14th. Basically, it is providing an opportunity to provide premium pay to essential workers during the COVID pandemic, which ran from January of 20 to April of this year. So we're able to go back and provide premium pay to those essential workers that were involved with care of patients and so forth. Independence is currently allotted $20,000 that we would be applying for with this application.
Any questions?
Not a question so much about that, but they're also in the data listed at Independence Fire District. Is that the one that's out west?
Not really sure, it could be.
That's not us, though.
No. I think we're listed under the City of Independence.
So Chief, we paid our employees overtime, and this is reimbursement, or this?
No, this is not a reimbursement. This is just to add above their regular rate of pay for that during that time.
Yeah.
And that would be split up amongst the line firefighters, those that were in direct contact with patients during that time. So we're talking basically our shift personnel. Admin is excluded from this opportunity.
So it's up to us internally to figure out.
Yeah, when we
How
submit
to-
for that, we'll have to show how we calculated that. Basically, I think it's gonna be a few extra, 50 cents per hour per guy, and it's gonna be marched out until the funds are exhausted.
All right.
Vice Mayor?
Hi, Jim.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say, Chief, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I'm enthusiastically for it. And I just want to compliment you and the department. You were the front line of COVID. You went into people's houses who had COVID. You didn't know people had COVID during car accidents. And you and your whole department handle it professionally and about as great as anybody could do. And I really congratulate you on it. I hope we get this grant. The troops are certainly deserving of any type of compensation because they put their lives on the line. And we had many a firefighter and first responder who lost their life during COVID, during the 2 terrible years that we endured that. And it's still going on in our society. So, you're quiet, but particularly effective, as is your organization, and I really want to compliment you for it. You handled it very professionally. You gave them the tools that they needed, and I know you were at my mom's house a number of times during COVID, and that was not an easy thing to do, and go into people's homes when you just didn't know what was going on. So I really applaud you and your whole department for doing such a great, courageous job.
Thank you.
Any opposition to putting this on consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, we'll place this on consent agenda, Steve. And our last piece of legislation is resolution number 2023-5. It's a resolution authorizing Michael Savioli to retain possession of his firearm and badge of office upon retirement. I noticed that he had 49 years of service to the city, so that's a tremendous accomplishment, and we should be very indebted to Michael for his the services that he has rendered to our city.
We are so fortunate to have had him for as long as we did. Even if the class of 71 called him Ravioli, he did a great job for the good people of Independence for many, many years.
That's for sure. And that, Mayor, can complete, and we'll put that on the consent agenda too.
Great, yes.
Very good. That completes the caucus, Your Honor.
Okay. Good evening. We have the regular meeting of council, City Council of August 8th, 2023. Clerk will call the roll.
DeGeronimo?
Here.
Grandel?
Here.
Narduzzi? Here. Tagliati?
Here.
Tracus?
Present.
Ververka?
Here.
Walchanowitz?
Here. And we have the prayer this evening by Finance Director Vern Blaze.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's pray. Father God, we know that it's always helpful to look at the past, the present, and the future to make the best decisions possible. When looking backward, help us not to dwell on our own failures and mistakes as they've been swallowed up by your grace. Help us to recall your faithfulness to us. When looking at the present, help us to not be overwhelmed by the difficulties and challenges of today. Help us to remember your constant presence. And when looking ahead, help us to not be afraid of the future. Help us to remember your promises to us. You who have blessed us is with us, and you will guide us to the end. We pray this in your holy, awesome name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Vern. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Audience participation? Blank. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 11, 2023, the Utility Committee meeting of July 10th, 2023, and the council workshop of July 25th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And they are adopted. Legislation, we have ordinance 2023-72.
Move that it be read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending ordinance 2021-56, which established the Home Improvement Assessment Public-Private Partnership Program for the purpose of assisting city residents to maintain and assure properties remain in compliance with the codified ordinances, including but not limited to for stormwater management, creek maintenance, and sewer maintenance as amended.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Any questions on the adoption?
I would move a technical amendment, Mayor. I think in the, in 2023-72, we have a misspelling. It says the codified ordinances instead of the codified ordinances, and
Oh, codified it, okay. That's just a
It's on the agenda.
It's in the
right?
title, it's in the
it's on
agenda.
the agenda,
It's
yeah.
not on the title.
Okay, it's good
Four.
on the title.
Copy.
Yeah, that's right. It's not on the title. Okay. Any questions on the adoption of 2023-72? Call the roll.
DeGeronimo,
Yes.
Grandel,
Yes,
Narduzzi,
Yes.
Tagliati,
No.
Tracus,
Aye.
Ververka,
No.
Walchanowitz.
Yes.
And it's adopted. We have ordinance 2023-73.
I move that this be read by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing the appropriation of $200,000 and the payment of the city's proportional share of participation in qualified and approved projects relative to the Property Improvement Assessment Public-Private Partnership Program, Revision 1.
Move the adoption.
Second.
Any questions on the adoption? Call the roll.
Grandel,
yes,
Narduzzi,
Yes.
Tagliati,
No.
Tracus,
Aye.
Ververka,
No.
Walchanowitz,
Yes.
DeGeronimo.
Yes.
And it's adopted. The approval of the consent agenda items will be read individually into the record, and the consent agenda will then be voted on as a whole by one motion and roll call. There will be no separate discussion on these items. Do I have a motion to read the consent agenda by title only?
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance 2023-88, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a job creation and relocation grant agreement with Weltman, Weinberg, and Reese Company, LPA, to relocate operations to a location within the city. Ordinance 2023-90, an ordinance accepting the bids for snow plowing services for senior citizens, disabled persons, active military residents for the 2023-2024 snow season. Ordinance 2023-92, preliminary legislation, LPA ODOT LET project agreement participatory. Ordinance 2023-93, an ordinance authorizing change order number 2 to the city's 2022 asphalt road maintenance and repairs contract with Roniak Paving. Ordinance 2023-96, an ordinance accepting the bid of Fabrizi Trucking and Paving Company, Inc. for the Maple Shade Cemetery Expansion Phase 2 Improvements Project Construction Contract. Ordinance 2023-97, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the State of Ohio Office of Budget and Management to apply for and accept coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery grant funds through the Ohio Ambulance Transportation Program. Resolution 2023-5, a resolution authorizing Michael Savioli to retain possession of his firearm and badge of office upon retirement.
And 24, I think we have 94.
There's-
2023-94.
We missed one.
Yes,
94?
she's going to read it. She's going to read it now.
I didn't know that you wanted,
I think we were taking 88 off also. John just-
right,
We didn't read 89, 94.
89.
89.
So,
89, we're going to vote on that.
okay,
Yeah.
94. Ordinance 2023-94, an ordinance granting a special conditional use permit to the Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Any questions on the adoption of the consent agenda? Call the roll.
Narduzzi,
Yes.
Tagliati,
Yes.
Tracus,
Aye.
Ververka,
Yes.
Walchanowitz,
Yes.
DeGeronimo,
Yes.
Grandel.
Yes,
And the consent agenda is adopted. We have ordinance 2023-89.
title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing the vice mayor to enter into a job creation and relocation grant agreement with Millcraft Paper Company to relocate operations to a location within the city.
Motion to suspend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Any questions on the adoption? Call the roll.
Tagliati,
Yes.
Tracus,
Aye.
Ververka,
Yes.
Walchanowitz,
Yes.
DeGeronimo,
Abstain.
Grandel,
Yes,
Narduzzi.
Yes.
And it's adopted. And we have ordinance 2023-91.
Title only?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
2023 annual appropriations ordinance.
Motion to adopt.
Suspend.
Motion to suspend, I'm sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Any questions on the adoption? Call the roll.
Tracus.
Aye.
Laverca.
Yes.
Walchanowitz.
Yes.
DeGeronimo.
Yes.
Grandel.
Yes.
Narduzzi.
Yes.
Tagliani.
No.
And it's adopted. We have ordinance 2023-95.
Will they be read by title only?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending Chapter 1366 lease rental occupancy certificate of the codified ordinances of the City of Independence,
And that'll remain on first reading, and the public hearing is set for 5 o'clock,
September 11th.
September 11th. With that, there being no additional business before this honorable body, I want to again, my report will reiterate and comment about the success of Home Days, but I'd be remiss if I didn't publicly state and appreciate the extra effort, hard work, dedication, and passion on behalf of the city employees for all the hard work and their effort in making the 2023 Home Days a huge success. So thank you to everyone that made a contribution and supported the event. It was phenomenal. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And thank you, everyone, for being here on Zoom, on YouTube, and in person. God bless.
Recording stopped.